Hi everyone, I've received a number of questions from people asking me how to improve their piano playing for pop songs, be it maybe for covers or if you're accompanying somebody. And these questions mainly revolve around how to make the playing sound richer, more flowing and less plain in general. So in this series of videos I've tried to analyze the way I play and break it down into a somewhat more logical process. Let's start with these two phrases that I'm going to play right now. This is the end result, and I will attempt to try and explain how one could possibly end up with something like that. First of all, fundamentally we have to figure out the bass chords. So in this case, I'm using a very typical series of chords from Mando pop music. I'm playing in the key of D major, and the bass chords are these. For both phrases. And although this sounds simple enough, we can actually do a lot more than this. And one starting point might be to add sevenths and ninths into the chords. A normal chord has three notes, the root, the third and the fifth. So using chord A as an example, the 5/7 chord A, we have the root note which is A, the third which is C sharp, and the fifth which is E. Now the seventh is two notes above the fifth, so in this case it will be the G, and the ninth is two notes above the seventh, in this case it will be the B. Adding sevenths and ninths will make the chords sound more colorful. And for this particular chord progression, I find that it's possible to add sevenths to all the chords, except possibly the final chord 1 at the end of the last phrase. The reason why I do not add the seventh for chord 1 is to give the music a greater sense of finality. Now one possible exception to this might be if the chord 1 was the end of the entire song, in which case it could then be possible to add the seventh to end off the song in a more special way. But anyway, going back to the original chord progression, if I add the sevenths to all the chords except the last chord 1, this is what it sounds like. And moving on to the ninths, I find that the ninths can also be added to all the chords here except maybe the chord 3 in the middle, because adding the ninth would create a dissonance between two notes in the chord. Generally, I do not always place the ninth as the top note of the chord, but instead I keep the ninth hidden somewhere within the middle of the chord that I'm playing. And if we add the ninths into all the chords except chord 3, then this is what we get. You can see that the music is starting to sound a bit more interesting. And let's talk about inversions. Inversions is when we do not play the chord with the root of the chord as the bass note. So we could have the third or the fifth or even the seventh of the chord as the bass note. Take the 5/7 chord, the A7 chord as an example. So this is the normal way with the bass note, the A, as with the root, which is the A, as the bass note. And I can use the first inversion of the chord whereby the third of the chord, which is C sharp, is the bass note. The second inversion is when the fifth of the chord, which in this case is E, is the bass note. And the third inversion is when the seventh of the chord, in this case it is G, is the bass note. So going back to the original example I played at the start of the video, I used the third inversion for the 5/7 chord in order to keep the bass note the same from the previous chord. So we have chord 4 going to a 5/7 third inversion chord, keeping the bass note the same on G. Yep, and that's all for this video. In the next video we will talk about chord substitutions, connecting bass notes, as well as suspensions.